don't know how many people.
Well, I got like 100 subs, almost 100 from just the promotion,
Oh,
and that is like
sweet.
a
That's
win for
awesome.
me.
Yeah, let me see. Like there might be some of our alumni I bet are gonna come on and ask questions and stuff.
Awesome. Like, so let me start with the introduction. Hi guys, welcome back. Like there's so many new faces in the comments, so many people I've never seen. But I really, really am grateful for this opportunity to be here. So if you're just checking out this channel for the first time, this channel is called ROJ the GOAT because I'm Roj and I'm a goat, I think. And we're
The
talking
goat.
about the goat. Yeah, like we're all the greatest, we're all goods in our own right. Like we're all greatest of all
I
time
love it.
in everything we're doing, in being ourselves. And I'm the greatest of all time in being myself, in doing what I love, which is motion design. So enough of that weird intro. This channel is all about motion design, helping people, just helping designers in Nigeria or in Africa make that transition to this thing I call motion design, or we all call motion design. So today we're having the amazing, the legendary, the king. So I'm trying to come up with a very, very weird hype, but it was not coming to me.
The bald, the
But the airless king of
yeah,
motion.
yeah, the hairless. I'm
Yeah,
the
it's not
goat at bald. Yeah.
the goal that being bold. Joey
Yep.
come and
Who were it?
welcome to the stream. Joey has been like one of the like that one single person that has changed the way we learn motion design or the way motion design is perceived today. And I'm really grateful. Like he has helped me personally. Like I know I personally like cannot afford to go for a school of motion course or could not. I think if I save up right now, I should be able to. But then like scavenging, like taking bits and pieces from the School of Motion, just their simple tutorials, their path to MoGraph course has really helped clarify a lot for me. And it has helped clarify a lot for a lot of people in Nigeria and in Africa. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for everything you're doing and all the contents you're releasing. Like it is helping us a lot. Like I'm saying it with so much expression because it's true. Like there's so many things that you can't just find on the internet, and the School of Motion clarifies it for you, and it's just amazing. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thank you so much. That was really nice things to say. Yeah, I want to say, we were talking before we started streaming,
Yeah.
and I'm already just so impressed by you. So I don't know if you've ever said this on your stream, but you told me you're 19. I'm literally twice your age. And you're already like having, you've already interviewed Ariel Costa and Nydia Diaz, and you have a YouTube channel. And what I love about what you're doing, and the reason I was so excited to come on, Roland, was to talk about what what you just mentioned, like the fact that School of Motion has grown, and the goal was always to help people. So it's awesome when I hear that it's actually helping people. And it was always supposed to help people all over the world. But there are definitely parts of the world where, for financial reasons, sometimes it's like, government laws about like blocking, content or not allowing people to pay for things. There's places where it's been really hard for us to help people in the same way we can help, say, someone in Canada or the United States or England.
Yeah.
And you set this list of questions over that really get into some difficult topics about how can we help artists in Africa learn to do motion design, with the barriers that exist there. So I'm excited to get into that and see if like anything productive can come out of it, because this is something we've been talking about a lot lately at School of Motion, is how can we help the people that need the help the most? We do a lot with scholarships and things like that, but there's places where even that isn't enough. Even giving someone the class for free isn't enough because they may not have a computer, they may not have the software. So yeah, man, I'm psyched to be here. Let's get into it.
Thank you very much. So let's just get straight. Like there's so much to say. I feel like if I like sit down here and talk about how amazing you are, we won't really leave this place right now. So let's just.
You'll run out of things to say pretty quick, actually.
Not really. I don't think I will. I owe a lot of things I know to the School of Motion, honestly. Like I owe a lot, and I don't think I would ever run out of things to say. And
Well,
I
well,
just
thank
want
you. We can skip over that because I'll just turn beet red and then.
to, yeah. So let's just get
Yeah.
into the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, the first question is, how did you become a motion designer? I know before School of Motion, you were freelancing for a while, but I didn't know, like, I don't fully understand how you started. What kick-started it for you, and how did you learn? How was it for you then?
Sure. So I'll try to like do the highlights and then you can ask me questions and I can dig in if you
Yeah,
want. But basically, like my whole life, as far back as I can remember, I was always really, really into making videos. And, I have a brother and sister. I'm the oldest. And so my father had a video camera and this was in like the 80s. So it was like this giant thing. And we learned how to use it and we would make little videos for like holidays and for school projects and stuff. And eventually I figured out, oh, there's this thing called editing, but you need a computer to do it. And so I
yeah,
sort of like started teaching myself things. And back in those days, you'd like get a subscription to a magazine and the magazine would show up and it would tell you about the new version of Avid or something. And so when I was in high school, I started like actually pirating software so that I could like play with Photoshop. And I know we'll talk about that soon. And some I don't even remember what it was called. It was like rudimentary 3D software. I think it was called True Space. And anyway, so I got really into the idea that making stuff on a computer. I went to college for film and television, and I was really studying like editing and shooting and production. But really what I liked was special effects, design, animation. And I didn't learn any of that in college, like none of that. So then my first job out of college was as an editor. I was an assistant editor, editing TV commercials, stuff like that. But all of our clients started asking for animation and graphics and titles. And so I was using After Effects just as much as I was using Final Cut Pro is what we were using back then. And I kind of fell in love with the freedom of it. Like if you're an editor, there's a ton of creativity and freedom in editing too, but you're editing based on the footage. It's not this like infinite, blue sky, whatever you want. But with motion design, you have a blank page and you can put whatever you want on it. And as you get better and better, you can make these fantastic things. You've had Ariel Costa, you've had Nydia Diaz on. I mean, you know what's possible when you get really good at this stuff. And so, so I went from that to freelancing, and I freelanced for a long time. I then decided I should start a studio. So I partnered with two people. We did that. I ran that studio for 4 years. And then I left to teach, and I freelanced for a couple more years, and then kind of school motion started to take off. And so that's where I ended up. But basically I ended up in motion design because I love making stuff. I love problem solving. I
you're
think actually
curious.
that's why I love it so much. It's like a puzzle you have to put together. Every single project is a puzzle, and like I think some people really love it for the art side of it. Like I love making images and I like that part too. What I really love is cracking the nut and figuring out how to get that problem solved, which I think is kind of why I was led to teaching and to like building school motion too.
I think we're kind of, see, we have like the same kind of start. I started motion design because I was very, very curious and I loved problem solving. And it kind of led me to this path and this journey of self-discovery. Even though being a motion designer in Nigeria, you'll be broke for a very, very long time. I mean, I've been broke for the last 2 years. And it's amazing.
But you're
It's an
19,
amazing,
so like that, it's normal to be a broke 19-year-old here.
well, for me, it's actually really, no, it's actually really true. But then for me, when you have like, because I started design like when I was like 14, 15. So in
Wow.
my,
That's
like
amazing.
at that age, I was like, by 19, I should be a millionaire. I should be like Dangote.
Of course, yeah.
In Africa, like, I should be a millionaire by then because I started
Sure, absolutely,
something,
yeah.
and most of my people my age are just distracted, and me, I'm just in this room. Literally, this is where this is the room it all started, and I'm like, everyone is focused on other things. They're focused on going to school, and I'm focused on this one thing I'm passionate about. In my mind, I should be a billionaire or a millionaire by then, and it's just amazing how curiosity led us here. So like, how long have you
Yeah.
been freelancing?
Okay, so well, first I wanted to say something to you because there's a quote and I forget who said it. It might be like a Tony Robbins quote or something, but it's
Yeah.
people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so it's when you said that, like, I mean, you were 14 and 14-year-olds like don't really, I'm sure you were very smart, Roland, as a 14-year-old, but I have an almost 11-year-old daughter, and I can tell you in 3 years she's not going to know how to become a millionaire. But like, you know, thinking, okay, I should be a millionaire by now, that's normal, and everybody like hopes that happens. But like, if you started right now, and I can tell you're driven, in 10 years you could totally be a millionaire like that. You know, it's like, but it takes 10 years. You know, and so it's really all about like finding what is the thing that keeps driving you forward. So you asked about freelancing. So I started freelancing when I was 23, I think, or maybe 24. So I had been working for 2 years, maybe a little more than 2 years, at this company in Boston, Massachusetts. And I really liked it there. And I'm still friends with like my old boss and all the people there. It was a great place. I learned a lot. But I wanted to do motion design, and their clients were not really asking for a lot of motion design. So that's why I left. And so I freelanced at first out of necessity. I could not find a job just doing motion design. And there were a bunch of like post-production houses in Boston. There were a couple of like, I guess you'd call them motion design studios, but this was in the early 2000s and it just wasn't as established as it is now. And so I couldn't get a full-time job. And so I went freelance pretty early with not a ton of experience because I just had to. That was the only way to get the work I wanted. And very quickly was booked every single day. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I did that for, I think, 6 years, like 5 or 6 years, just full-time freelance. And every year, like I would do a little bit more work. I'd raise my rate. I'd start booking my friends and having them like, you know, I'd subcontract to them. And so by the time I was, I don't know, probably getting close to 30 and I was about to get married and I wanted to buy a house and I was like, okay, why don't I, you know, get off of the freelance train and I'll start a studio because that way it's a little more stable and all of that. So I took a break from freelancing, did the studio thing, which is very different. Then after the studio thing ended and I was teaching, I was freelancing in my free time because I was teaching at an art school here in Florida and I had a lot of free time. So I would freelance. And that is really when I felt like I hit my stride with freelance because I was good enough at motion design, but I really understood how to get work and I really understood how to make clients happy. And so those probably 2 years of freelance funded School of Motion. That's how I was able to build it, was by freelancing and then trying to like fit in like making tutorials and building website and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I mean, I guess like in total, I've probably freelanced for 8 years, I would say, but kind of in two different time periods.
That is like really, really amazing. I've only been freelancing for the last 3 years.
Yeah. And to be clear, I don't freelance at all anymore. Like School of Motion has been my full-time job for at least 4 years now.
Do you miss freelancing?
It's a good question, Roland. To be honest, no, I don't miss freelancing. There's things about it that I loved. You know what it is? It's like I got really good at it. And by good at it, I mean like I was really good at getting work and making clients happy. I wasn't like doing the best work. I was just good at freelancing. I had sort of cracked the code. I was good at the business side of it. And there's something like really, really, really satisfying when a client comes to you and they're desperate because they have this problem that only you can solve and you say yes, and then you solve it, and then they're just like gushing because you made them look good, you made their life easier. There's something about that dynamic I always loved, even when we were running the studio, which was super stressful. You know, we would do these jobs and they were much bigger then and much more complicated. And then the client would love it. And it was like, oh man, that's pretty cool. And with School of Motion, there's just a different version of that. And everything's much bigger now. And, you know, there's 27 people full-time at School of Motion now. Wow. And so a lot of the things that I do, it's like, like what I'm working on is sort of like starting these ideas out and then handing them off, and then it takes like a year sometimes, and then the result comes out the other side. And so it's just different. It's like a different form of I guess results is a way of looking at it. But I do not miss doing client work. I really,
honestly, I think if I left freelancing or left doing client work, I'll be totally happy with my life.
Yeah.
Because I personally just ate the conversations. I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the work, but I ate the client conversations because they always tend to make me corporate, and I ate the word corporate. Like that's the one thing. And I would enter, and I would.
So what I would say about that is, so when we started the studio, and like before that I was freelance, and so I had to talk to clients all the time. But there's a difference when you're the studio and you're talking to clients. They treat you differently. They expect more. You have to be sort of more professional, but still they don't want you to be corporate. They want you to still be cool, but not too cool. And so there's like this line you have to walk. And so I used to get really uptight about it and like nervous before calls, thinking, oh my gosh, okay, I need to be funny, but I need to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I also need to be like, I know what I'm doing. And one of my business partners gave me some really good advice and basically said because what I was doing was I was just trying to do everything over email so I could avoid that. And he was like, listen, forget everything else. Okay. If treat the client like they're your friend. That's it. They're your friend. They have a problem. Your friend has a problem. You want to help them solve it. Just go in with that attitude and let the rest take care of itself. And that cracked open the door for me, because from that point forward, I could get on a phone call with someone that I'd never met, who was like a big wig at an advertising agency. And I wouldn't think of them as, oh my gosh, this is like the creative director on the Volkswagen account, and I'm just this person pretending to be a creative director at a studio. I'd think oh, Dave, hey, what can I do for you, man? And then it makes it a lot easier, and it's really just a mindset shift. So you've probably got a lot more client work in your future, Roland, so maybe that'll help you.
True. I have to do a lot of practice. I think it's also about being authentic. I think we had a little discussion about authenticity earlier, and you're talking about the fact that authenticity is really important. You have to show your true self and not filter anything. Exactly. I think also when you're having conversations with the client, it's really important to be your true self and not filter anything. Don't add any little lies in there. Just be yourself. Show them what you're passionate about. And I think I would add, I have more time to practice, to be honest. So I'll just keep getting better at having conversations with the client. I think someone is asking if I started freelancing at 16. Okay, I've been freelancing since I was a designer. I only transitioned to motion design 3 years ago. That's why I said 3 years earlier. So since I was 14, I immediately started charging for my work, and that's how it started for me. But we'll go over questions later.
That's amazing. That is so impressive. You were freelancing at 14. Okay. I should be interviewing you.
It was let me just try. When I was younger, I was like, if you can tell, I liked money a lot.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying when you get an alert in your bank account, someone sent you money. So just wanted to make money from what I was doing immediately. And it's probably one thing I regret doing, because I used to be a very good artist. I used to draw very well, but then I started charging for it too early. And then I had a very, very nasty client. But I had a very, very nasty client, and I haven't drawn anything serious since then, because I didn't really enjoy the experience. So one thing I would say to anyone who is starting, don't charge too early. Take your time to actually enjoy what you love doing. It's one thing I wish I didn't do. I didn't start freelancing early. I just took my time to enjoy it. You would have a happier life that way, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge that motion designers too, when you start doing it for money and for clients, it changes everything. And there's like this painful lesson that every single artist I've ever met has to learn the hard way. I've never met anyone who learned this just by hearing it and then, oh, I get it now. They always have to bump up against it like a car crash. And that is when someone's paying you to make art, it's not yours. It's not your art. It's theirs. And so you have to just completely detach your ego from it. And it's not that you don't care. You care. You want it to be good. But if they want to ruin it, you have to let them ruin it. And to counteract that, you kind of need a different outlet. So that's why a lot of artists do personal projects and studios do studio projects. And a lot of artists do other things that have nothing to do with motion design. They go ride BMX bikes or, I play music, so that's kind of the secret there. But it sounds like you ran into it. Luckily, you were very young. So now you'll get over that and you'll have the rest of your life to enjoy your art. So
honestly, that's my plan. Just get over the clients, making money phase and just focus on enjoying it.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's go over the next question before we start another conversation. So the next question is, how did you start? How and why did you? I think you've touched it a little bit when we were just discussing. So, but I would just like for you to clarify it a little bit more. How and why did you start the School of Motion?
So, I initially started it because I was running a studio in Boston, and on paper that was exactly what I wanted to do. Like I had aimed at that and I was like, oh my God, I will have made it when I am running a studio and I have a team and we're making awesome stuff and making money, right? That was kind of what I thought. And then when I was 28 or 29, I met these two amazing guys in Boston. We started the studio. They funded the whole thing. I ran the studio. By the end of it, we were like getting close to making $1 million in a year, which was kind of one of our goals to get to. I was paid well. I had a team. I had clients. We were doing national spots, and I was just miserable, man. Like I was getting up every day, and it had nothing to do with the studio or the people or even the work and the clients, really. It was just sort of like realizing, I had gotten married and I had 2 daughters at that time. And I had to get on a train every morning and commute into the city because we couldn't afford to live in Boston. Boston's crazy expensive. So we lived about 45 minutes away. And every day I would like see my kids, like, just getting up and I'm leaving. And then I'd come back and they're asleep. And my wife is stressed out and she's not seeing me during the week. And then the clients that we were working with were mostly nice people. Some of them weren't, but the brands were just like, it was like we were selling sandwiches and car insurance and phones. And I just started to feel like, man, is this really what success feels like? Like, okay, you're getting paid well and you get this title and you get respect and you get to go to industry parties, but why? What's it all mean? So I think had a midlife crisis at like age, 33 or something. And so I started looking for, okay, well, this is all I know how to do. Like I'm a motion designer and I can freelance and I can run a studio now, but this is really all I know how to do. What can I do with this talent that I have, right? That I've developed over a decade. And the only person that I knew of who had sort of escaped the world of client work that I saw was Nick Campbell from Grayscale Gorilla.
Yeah.
And so I followed him like everybody, right? And I thought, that guy's figured it out. He started a website and he started teaching people things and he built up an audience and then figured out how to make plugins and make these useful things, right?
Shout out to Grayscale Gorilla. A lot of us learned Cinema 4D there.
Everybody, listen, he's the Andrew Kramer of Cinema 4D. So anyway, so I basically just copied that. I was like, okay, I'm going to start a website and I'm going to make tutorials, and he's got the Cinema 4D thing covered. So I'll do mostly After Effects. I know Cinema 4D, like I actually used it almost every day when I was doing work. But I kind of let them keep that. And then, and I basically just started making tutorials and I thought, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how this will turn into a business later. And so I just started doing that. it was really rewarding right away. I was doing it at night, like after I'd come home from the studio and I had dinner and my wife was lying in bed reading and I'd be in the next room, like making a tutorial. And in doing that, slowly but surely, people started watching them. And then like I had an email list and I started building that up. And then basically it just stopped because then we moved. We moved from Massachusetts to Florida. I started teaching at Ringling, which is the school down here. And I didn't have as much free time. And I almost gave up on the whole thing. I was like, well, I have this job teaching, which is really fun and it's not super demanding and I can freelance on the side and I'm good at freelancing. So like freelancing was actually paying more than me teaching at the school. Doing like freelancing part-time was making more. And we had this awesome life and I'm like, yeah, but I'm ambitious, you know, like I kind of need, it's that puzzle. It's like, I have like school motion, I could tell had potential, but there was a piece missing. There was a puzzle that I hadn't solved it yet. And so I left Ringling knowing I could freelance. And that was like kind of the whole point of the Freelance Manifesto, which is the book I wrote about freelancing, was like freelancing was this tool I had. I want to get to here and freelancing gets me there. And it did. And so, yeah, so then I focused on School of Motion and I took the summer after I left my teaching job and I made 30 tutorials and I released them one a day for 30 days. And at the end of that, I had this huge audience. And like Motionographer had written an article about it. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, okay, so that worked. So let me do something else now. And so then I made a class. I made Animation Boot Camp, which is still like usually the number 1 or 2 most enrolled class that we have. And people started signing up for that and saying, oh, wow, this is great. You should make another one. And from there, it just kind of steamrolled. And so, you know, that was 2014. Here we are in 2020, the end of 2020. Yeah. And it's just like piece by piece grown into this crazy thing that I never could have imagined. And we have 27 full-time staff. We have, I think we have 70 teaching assistants. They're not all like teaching at the same time, but we have this enormous network of artists that are helping teach students. We have, we're about to launch our 14th class and there's a bunch of other neat stuff we'll announce at the beginning of next year, but we just acquired a company. And so there's like, and so this is what I was telling you, Roland, about people they overestimate what they can do in 1 year. They underestimate what they can do in 10 years, right? So like if you told me 6 years ago how big School of Motion would be, I would not have believed you. But 6 years is actually a really long time if you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
And like I set my sights low. Like I had no idea that it could grow to this size, and it's still growing. And there's, you know, so I guess to get back to your original question, why did I start it? It was originally like I felt like what I was doing didn't line up with what I wanted anymore. It was that simple. What do you want? Not this, you know?
I think
it's changed.
It changed.
Yeah.
I think you've gotten to that point where you've gotten to that, your dream for the last 10 years and your life is at this point where it doesn't have a purpose anymore. Like I always imagine like after, okay, when like this year, I told you about getting to my main goal this year was helping a business sell. And the point of helping a business sell emotion design is to show other businesses that this thing can actually sell. Now we were able to make that goal. We helped a business sell out in a week. And now
amazing, man.
What was in my head is like, what is next? I think you had that what is next syndrome. That's what I would call it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So, and I would caution you too, because that what is next syndrome. So I just call that ambition, right? Like you're addicted to success, right? So, and that's gonna serve you very, very, very well in life until it doesn't. And so what I learned the hard way was that like, if you let ambition just drive you forward and it's like pulling you, you know, it's like you're attaching your cart to a horse that runs really fast, but you basically stop steering the horse and the horse just runs where it wants to. And at some point it's helpful to actually get out of the cart and look around and be like, is this still what I want? Because what you want right now at 19, I promise you will not be the same thing you want when you're 29 or 39, which is my age. Like you're going to want different things. And it's very easy to get, there's a term here. I don't know if they have it in Nigeria, but the term is golden handcuffs. And it's where you're in a job or you're in a career and you've been getting like promotions or, you know, or you're raising your rate. And all of a sudden you're like high up on the food chain and you're making a lot of money, but you're unhappy, but you have all of this prestige and you're being paid well. And you realize, uh-oh, if I want to change, I'm going to have to go backwards for a minute.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do that. And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up going backwards, like financially and everything else. But I think it would have been easier had I just taken 5 minutes at some point and been like, do I really want this? This is actually what I want, you know?
I think that's why I stopped, like the way I set my goals right now isn't the way earlier this year, I had so much, like at the beginning of this year, I had so many, like I had too many goals, I had too many plans for my life this year. And only one of them was successful. But like right now, I have stopped trying to define how I want how I want the next 10 years is supposed to go. I want the next 10 years to happen for itself. Because I really don't know where God is taking me, or I don't know where life is taking me, to be honest. So I'm just going to stop. It's not like I'm not like saying I don't want to have goals anymore or have ambition. I'm just saying that I don't want to attach it to a time or say this is when I want it to happen, because you really cannot predict what is going to happen right now. Like if anybody told me I was going to start another channel this year, the beginning of this year, I would just laugh and say, no, why would I start a YouTube channel about motion design? And it was a very unconscious decision. I just woke up one morning. I was like, maybe I should start a channel. And a few days later, I started a channel. Like in a week, I got to like 50 subscribers. Next week, by the end of the month, we got to 100. And we've been pushing forward since then. But then the point is, like, you can't fully predict what is going to happen. And you should just go with the flow. Maybe don't kill your ambitions, but then don't let it control you.
Yeah, there's some advice that I've heard where, you know, setting goals, I think there's a place for it, but the problem with goals is that they're fixed, right? So it's like if you say my goal is to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, great. And you can like get there, but you might get halfway there and realize I don't really want to do this anymore, but that's my goal. And so maybe a better way of approaching it is to have systems, right? And so a system, and there's different like philosophies around this, but it's like a system might be, my system is that I wake up and I make sure I spend at least 2 hours a day doing something creative that I enjoy. And so right now that's YouTube, right? Or whatever else. I mean, I'm sure you do a million other things, but like, so, you know, and that's just one example. And by having that as your system, systems can change, right? Because you might start having success with your YouTube channel and then realize like, well, this doesn't actually make me happy anymore, but I still want this to grow. So I'm just gonna, now I'm gonna go find someone else to do my YouTube channel for me, right? Whereas like, if you have this goal and it's like this concrete thing, sometimes you can get stuck just going full speed ahead at it, when really what you need to do is like shift and like figure out a different way to solve this problem now. And I'd also think too, like one of my systems is just, I need to always be developing at least one talent that has nothing to do with my job. It doesn't matter what that talent is, right? And I've always been like that. Yeah, music. There you go.
I've never heard you play, but I can imagine you be an amazing drummer.
Oh, I am an amazing drummer. You want to talk about?
Like,
no, yeah, but like I'll see. This is the thing about it though. It's and I think I wrote about this in the book too. Like, it's some of it's hindsight, but some of it also like now moving forward, I still do this, and it's so helpful. There are, like we were talking before, I am not the best motion designer in any room I go into, even in this room. Okay. Like I've always been just a pretty solid, maybe slightly above average motion designer. I'd like to think above average. Okay. But slightly. However, I am a musician, and I've been playing music a really long time, and I take it very seriously. So that there's actually a lot of useful things about that in motion design. I also, in being a musician, have performed. I was in bands for years. I've played big shows. So I'm not afraid to get in front of a crowd, right? I know how to handle myself and to be in front of people and in front of a camera. I fell into the world of doing voiceovers for years. I was a professional voiceover artist. And then on top of that, I have this, like, I think my gift, if you believe that people are born with gifts.
No one is born with any gift.
Well, it's like, maybe it's not a gift, but it's like I enjoy it enough that I got good at it. Teaching, like like telling you, like you're talking and you say something and I'm like, oh, I want to tell him this because it's going to help him. It's that, right? So I'm pretty good at that. But the other 5 things I listed, I'm average at. But you put those 5 things together and it's this super unique stack of talents.
So you match it with teaching. Then it's like
you match. Yeah, it's like you take someone who likes teaching and is okay at it, pretty good maybe. You take a motion designer who's, like above average. You take, but that person's not shy. They're used to performing. They have a musical sensibility and they know how to do voiceovers. Could you imagine a better person to start making tutorials, right? And that was not my intent. But in hindsight, it's like, as soon as I started making them, people told me, oh, you're good at this. And I didn't understand it. I was like, what do you mean? Is it like, I don't think I am. But I wasn't good at tutorials. I was good at these other 5 things that made me like instantly adequate at tutorials. And then after years, I got good at those too. So it's like, it's like trying to be good at motion design is great, but you should try to be good at like 5 things, because that's how you really stand out and figure out what it is you're put on this earth to do,
like in the light of that, I try my best to not focus on just learning motion. I learn everything around motion. I'm trying to get better at photography, because motion design is just combination of photography, design, and animation, and even music. Like motion design sound is like a big part of the experience. People don't pay attention to sound, but remove the sound and put a terrible sound, you will not be able to watch that video.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to, I started, why I mentioned music was because I started learning music theory around August, and I started learning how to make it. So I don't have a piano or any instrument right now, but I hope to get one soon and just practice more, because it's like a different way to channel my creativity. And I really enjoy listening to music when I work, and I enjoy the sound design process. And I really like that you love music too. Yeah. So we have one more thing in common.
I'm obsessed with music. Yeah. And it's funny because right before we were recording, we were talking about Sakani and Sakani Solomon, for anyone watching. And so I was on an email thread with him, and I've never met him before. I'm obviously like big fan of his work and everything, but I was like on this email thread with him, and I wanted to learn more about him. And so I went onto his Instagram page and I found out he plays guitar.
Yeah.
He's into the same music as me. So then we immediately like bonded over the bands that we're listening to. And it's like, that's another, that's like another just like bonus of having interests, like deep interests, not just shallow, like deep. You got to go deep,
For me, I enjoy really old soul songs.
Yeah.
I mean, music from the 90s, the 60s, 70s, 80s. I feel like it was like the golden era of music, because they didn't have the equipment that musicians have today, and they were able to make amazing songs.
Yeah.
I feel like if we started commercial music, we wouldn't leave this. Because there's so much to talk about, and music is just amazing. It's just a very good way to communicate and just share ideas and just enjoy.
I just want to call out really quickly that you said old music and then you said 90s, and I kind of died a little bit inside.
It's old, like.
No, I know, you're right. No, listen, you're 19. It's old. Yeah. Wait, I'm curious though. So what bands from the 90s? Because I got really into music. Like in the 80s, I was into music, but not like I was in the 90s. In the 90s, and I'm into like rock music and metal and stuff. And so in the 90s, it was like Nirvana and Soundgarden, and then I got into Metallica and all these other things. But I'm trying to think of like 90s soul stuff. I mean, you're talking like Boyz II Men, I think they were still going in the 90s.
Boyz II Men,
yeah.
But I like Roy Ayers. I don't know if I
Yeah.
pronounced his surname well. And I like Nina Simone.
Hmm.
I think I like Aretha Franklin. I can stand her. I can stand her.
I mean, she's amazing. It's like,
She's amazing,
yeah,
but like I
yeah,
don't hate her. I
yeah.
love what's this guy's name? This Bee Gees guys. Those guys. I
Oh,
sang
the
this
BJ, was it like Wyclef and
uh, Staying Alive.
yeah. Okay.
Staying
Oh,
Alive.
I was thinking of the Fuji. I was thinking of the Fugees. I got to mix up. Yeah. Okay.
Bee
Yeah.
Gees.
Yeah. The Bee Gees.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, to me, that's old. So that's okay.
yeah, like, I enjoy those music because they are like a lot of people just rip off those old music and just add a drum beat and boom, they've made hip hop for today, and that's what they're all
Right.
doing. And it just shows how creative those people were with so little tools. It's just amazing, and I
Yeah, it's true.
respect them a lot. I
I
respect them
love
a lot.
it. I love
So
it. All right.
let's leave our music topic for another
What's next?
conversation. The next question is a very big one. It's a conversation than a question. It's a question. It's like something that is really dear to my heart. I think we talked about it a little bit before this live stream. Before we went live, we're talking about the Nigerian piracy problem. But I wouldn't call it the Nigerian piracy problem. I would say the African or the world piracy problem, because we're not the only people who pirate. Like you're
Mhm.
telling me, you started with the fact that you also pirated for the softwares when you started.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I want to get into this like deeply because I want to understand it too. So first of all, I want to say that um, people have been pirating school motion classes literally since the very first class we ever ran. We had the first class we ever ran. We had 40 students. That's it. 40.
and it's still
And
pirated.
one of them, I don't know who, I have a guess, but one of them copied all of the videos, and it must have been a pain in the ass too, because our video player that we were using, you couldn't download the file, so they had to like get a screen recorder and
I think
something.
you
Anyway,
blocked it more now.
but they pirated it, right? And at first I was really upset, I was mad, and then I talked to a few other people who make products and videos, things like that. The thing is, you cannot stop piracy. And frankly, I used to feel really strongly about this, that just piracy is bad, you're stealing. And now I feel a little bit differently about it. And this was specifically around music, like when MP3s were invented and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
could download an album. That was a big deal. And bands hated it because all of a sudden they couldn't
Not the
make money
bands,
off
the
of
labels. Because the
well,
bands
and the
naturally don't
bands.
make money. The
Well,
bands
that's true.
naturally-
Yeah, that's true. The bands didn't make money anyway.
the labels were
But
the
like
one making it.
when you're talking about a 14-year-old that wants to learn motion design, and they live in a country where the cost of a U.S. motion design course might be like 3 months salary or something, then it makes it's just impossible, right? And I don't want people to be blocked by money. I really don't. And so when I was a kid, 3D software was like $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, it's not like it is now where Cinema 4D is $90 a month. You had to spend thousands of dollars, and there was no way that was going to happen. So I pirated it because I wanted to learn it. And I've talked to people who make software, and even the people who make the software who theoretically are losing money when people pirate it. There's a certain amount of piracy that feels okay because it's really like, I can't afford this. If I could, I would pay you, but I can't. But I desperately want to learn this. I want to be an artist and use this tool. And the only way that's possible is if I find a version that's cracked or something like that.
Yeah.
I get on the Pirate Bay or whatever it is now. CG Persia is where I found school motion classes before. And so I've got this relationship to it where it's like, if someone's doing it and trying to sell our classes, like, for cheaper or something, that makes me mad. But if I hear that like someone, somewhere in Africa, like pirated our class because it's unaffordable. I don't mind, to be honest. And maybe I'm, shooting myself in the foot business wise, but I really think it's fine. And it actually makes me sad too, because the big benefit of our classes is not just the content. The content's good, but it's
Content is just one thing. You can
it's
get
the
content.
feedback. It's all that, and you miss out on that if you're pirating it. But I want to know, how can we fix that? Like, how can we make it? Here's the other thing too, Roland, and I'm curious, like, if you've ever seen this or people you've talked to. It's like when you pirate software, you play with it, it's fun, and you get into it. When you pirate a class and you start going through it and you hit something that's really hard, well, you didn't pay for it, so like you don't have that much pushing you to finish it. And one of the reasons our classes cost what they do, there's a lot behind our classes, so it's like mostly because that's what they have to be, but some of it is also, if we don't charge enough, people don't finish the classes. And so that's kind of the other thing about the piracy thing. It's not only are you not getting the feedback and all of that, but I feel like you're probably not finishing the class, because our classes are very hard. And so having skin in the game is also kind of part of the deal. It's like, if you want to learn to animate, it's not easy. So like, if it's free, you're not going to finish it.
I think I've experienced that when I do pirate courses, I don't watch it. They're just there. Like, I prefer scavenging, like just piecing in info, because it's not worth it. I didn't pay for it. I'm not feeling pressure to learn it. But when I scavenge and I search and I try my best to get piece and bits together, to like, I found a way to like find a curriculum for motion design. Like, I created my own curriculum for motion design, and I started learning things on those curriculum, and that's how I built, like, I piece it together to make one full course. But this problem is beyond just people just taking courses and softwares, and it's a problem with the system, the government, everything. It's not about you. It's more about where we are right now. There's like an imbalance of opportunities. The company I really wish that we couldn't, like, we had right now, is Adobe. Because Adobe, like, beyond the softwares, there's so much you get with getting Adobe legally. Like, you have so much access. You can go for competitions. You can have opportunities that Adobe presents. But the fact that Adobe is not available in West Africa, like, you can't buy it. Even if you saved up, you can't buy it legally, because they'll just tell you it's not available on their website. It's just really painful that, like, you don't have that same opportunity. I feel like if the softwares or these tools were actually available, like, it's beyond just them. Those, like, a lot of these tools are not even available here. Like, you can't even buy it. If you want to get it, you can't even access a PayPal account, like a proper PayPal account, to buy a lot of things. So, like, it's beyond that. We need to find a way to solve all these other problems, and that problem would solve the piracy problem, in my own opinion. If you think about it, that problem would solve the piracy problem. So what I want us to focus on is those other problems behind it. The problems with like, for example, you mentioned there's a difference in our emails. There's a difference in exchange rates.
Right.
Like, a dollar is like 445 naira here, and 445 naira can get someone a good meal. And Adobe software is like $50 a month. $50 is like, if I do the maths, like 20,000 naira, I think. And 20,000 naira can feed a family for a week in Nigeria. So, like, it is
so crazy. It's like 10 times the expense, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like,
I was trying to figure out what the exchange rate really is, but yeah, so it feels like it's 10 times more expensive. So our class that's $1,000 in the US would feel like $10,000 in Nigeria. Do you think? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's like the perfect analogy. Like, it feels like you're paying for, like, if I paid for a School of Motion course, I could literally get a good computer. Yeah. I could pay for rent. I could buy a car, a used car. I could do a lot with that money. I could buy a land in a remote area.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's more expensive.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the other stuff too, but the cost part, That's the part that to me feels the most solvable. At least like, so one of the things that we recently launched it. So the president of our company, her name's Elena Vandermost, and she took it upon herself to start basically a separate nonprofit organization. It's called Motion Forward. And the idea is to get people on board like us and Adobe and Maxon and Grayscale and everybody in the industry that we can, and to try and pool our resources to fix problems like this, because
Yes.
it's not as easy as like, with our classes in particular, it's not as easy as just, hey, if you're from Nigeria, charging a different price. If it was that easy, we would just do that. The problem is that for the classes to not lose money, they have to be a certain price. And even that price is probably insane. Like from, but if there's, so what we're thinking about and what we're playing with and trying to figure out a way to do is to basically have funds available to subsidize artists depending on where they live. So that way, if you're in Nigeria and you want to take a School of Motion class, you can, and it will still cost money, because I do believe it should cost something.
Yes.
But it can cost basically what we would need to break even. Like it would, and it would be kind of adjusted for the currency and stuff like that. So there are things like that we're trying to figure out. But I want to know, what are the other things that I'm not even thinking about? Like you mentioned, you can't even legally buy Adobe in Nigeria, which I wasn't aware of. So like, why is that? Like
I've tried to reach out to people in Adobe, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can reach out to Adobe for anything but this topic. They'll just not respond.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just, I find it really, really sad that I can't reach them because for this topic, because this is what I would discuss. Yeah, I feel like if you decide to find a way to subsidize it for us, we will still be going back to the software problem. It solves the learning problem, but then it's opening the door for another problem. I wouldn't want the same people who we are trying to avoid them pirating still go back to pirating softwares.
Right. There's no choice. There's no choice. Yeah.
There's no choice, because like to learn that you need After Effects and you need Photoshop and you need to get $50. So like what I'm thinking of is, instead of like you reducing your price, because I feel like the prices are worth it. Honestly, you are putting so much to it to subsidize it. It is worth it. It's a very fair pricing. It is. We just need other ways to solve the problem than reducing the cost. Because if you just reduce the cost, it's kind of unfair on other people who are actually paying the normal amount, one, and it's unfair on you. And it is really worth it, because motion design, like School of Motion, is not just about the course. You can get the course from anywhere. You could just literally buy like a tutorial, like a full course on Domestika or Skillshare or even Mograph Mentor, who has a similar program. But then you wouldn't get the community experience. You wouldn't get like having a teaching assistant. You wouldn't like meet other people in your industry. So like it's not worth it. Reduce it. Like that experience is like going to a proper school to learn motion design. And that experience should be valued because it's worth it. Like you don't know, like my career is built on meeting people. You don't know where the people you're meeting are going to take you to.
Right.
Like you cannot just know, and you have something that is this valuable. I don't think you should reduce your price for us. I think we just need to find other ways to solve this problem. And that's what we're trying to figure out here.
That's really interesting to hear you say that, man. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's honestly, it's a problem. It's a problem with every industry in the world. It's like we have such an unequal distribution of wealth in the world, right? To where, and that's the part we haven't even gotten to yet. But like, even the financial part, it's like, like I feel very fortunate that School Motion's doing well enough to where if we, if we subsidize the price of courses for students in, I don't know, like we've had some students from Africa before, but like we've had a bunch from South Africa. We've had a few from Kenya. I think we've had people reach out from Sudan, but I think there's still like laws about providing things. But
I think I have a friend would in a class this year. he saved
Yeah.
up and paid for it, and it was
Yep.
amazing. I really wanted
Oh,
to
I
do
love
that.
it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, man, you're in the next session, so you're gonna be an alumni soon too.
Yeah, I
But
forgot to mention.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very
yeah. So, but what I was gonna say is like, from my perspective, the value of the class, it's relative, you know, like the value of a class that's $1,000 to someone who lives in Los Angeles and makes $100,000 a year. It's 1/100th of their salary. So it's expensive, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like save up for a year to be able to pay for this class, right? Versus if the currency in Nigeria is, you know, and I don't know if we're getting the numbers right, but if it's 1/10, right, then it's, I mean, that might be literally like I cannot buy anything for an entire month or 2 months or 3 months to be able to pay for this. That doesn't seem fair to me, and it would seem more fair to lower the price so that it feels the same. That's what it should be. It should feel the same. You know,
you're saying
$1,000 to someone in New York or LA, it should feel the same as, I don't know, $100 to someone in Nigeria, maybe. As long as it feels like, ooh, that is pricey. That's an investment, but I can do it. It's worth it. I'm not gonna, you know. And that's all I want. Like I want, and there's not a great mechanism to do that. Like I haven't, you know, I mean, different companies, even Adobe in the countries they sell in, I think they have different pricing in certain countries for that reason. So that's a thing, but it's tricky. And I'm really curious why Adobe doesn't sell their software
I
in certain
think
countries, you know?
they were selling in Nigeria. They were selling everywhere
Yeah.
when they had like the CS package. But then when they switched to the Creative Cloud, they stopped selling in West Africa. They sell in South Africa, but I'm not sure to what extent they
Interesting.
do. And it's just South Africa. South Africa has more. Like if you're talking about an imbalance in opportunities, South Africa has more opportunities for like in with companies like this than Nigeria, if I'm being honest. Like I wanted to go for this mentorship by OFF. I don't know if I'm always saying it right. And Nigeria wasn't in the form at all. And I felt really, really bad. Like I felt terrible that Nigeria was not even included in the form. And I think it's beyond just piracy. There is so much to it. And for I know this session or this conversation is tied to the future of learning motion design. I feel like for there to be a future of learning motion design, this is one problem we have to solve. We have to
Yeah.
find a way to solve. And I feel like this is that one big thing I want to personally put all my resources, all my energy, all my efforts to solving. I think one way, what I've learned, what I've discovered is that for this, I feel like if you make your class affordable for us, it will be really, really nice, but then it's going to bring up a problem with software. A way
Right.
I feel like that we can solve that is by using open source softwares. So if
Yeah.
you're going to make your class more open to other like to more countries that can afford it, you have to make it open to other softwares that are not necessarily industry standard but can get the job done. A good example is for 3D, you need to have like I've been using Blender for like I stopped using
Yep.
Cinema 4D. I wanted to stop pirating Cinema 4D, so I stopped using Cinema 4D and I've been using Blender, and it has been amazing to be honest. And my recent project was done entirely in Blender, the project with my team, and I want to write the case
It's
study
awesome.
on it. And I want to, so I feel like if you can make more courses using open source software, it solves the problem. So like it's
Yeah.
beyond just changing your price, it's also adjusting the way your courses are run. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
so let's talk about this because okay, so Blender is a great example. That like and it's funny how like I feel like Blender's in the air. Like I've had all these conversations about Blender recently. Um, so here's the challenge, I mean, I don't want to speak for EJ, who's you know he's our 3D creative director and he's in charge of our 3D classes and content. I know he's curious about Blender too, and I'm sure at some point we'll have Blender content in classes. And the thing though is that Blender, as it's amazing, but
yes.
and maybe this will change, but it's not the standard thing used in most studios, in most ad agencies here. I think that is changing a little bit. I think it is being adopted as it gets better, and the organization behind it seems to be doing a really good job. So Blender, maybe in 5 to 10 years, you'll be seeing it at like big studios and stuff like that, right? Or if you go work at an ad agency, maybe they'll have like, Blender licenses or Blender artists. On the 2D side, though, there is no real competitor to After Effects. There's
Cavalry that's coming up.
Yeah, well, there's Cavalry. Well, Cavalry's not open source, but also the thing that After Effects has done that, and here's the thing, there are other softwares out there. I'm trying to think. Open source, I don't know what competes with After Effects.
Open source.
There's probably something. I'm sure there's some open source thing.
I saw one. I forgot the name because I didn't use it. I only tried out Cavalry. But I saw one that's completely free.
But you have Hit Film is another app that can do a lot of the things After Effects can do. Fusion, which there is, I think, still a free version of it that you can get. DaVinci Resolve, there's like a free version, and I think it comes with Fusion. I could be wrong about this, don't quote me, but Fusion is another compositing app, and it can do some of the things After Effects can do. And there's Cavalry, which can do some of the things After Effects can do. None of them can do all of the things After Effects can do and integrate perfectly with like industry standard editing apps and everything else, right? So the problem is, if we were going to teach a 2D animation class, like, motion design, like making explainer videos, that kind of stuff, I don't know what app we would use to replace After Effects that's open source. I'm not even sure, even if it wasn't open source, I'm
not necessarily asking you to replace it. I'm telling you to make the softwares. Like, I'm not telling you to. I'm just like, it's just an idea.
Thank you.
It feels like I'm saying what you should do. It's just an idea. I'm telling you, like, you could make the software subjective, organize the class in a way that they can use, like, this cannot work for the classes that are strictly a particular software, like Animation Bootcamp and this class on After Effects. This class on Cinema 4D cannot work that way. So you can just create classes that are subjective in the sense that they accommodate those other softwares.
Right.
And you explain it in a way that, if someone who understands Cavalry would get it quickly. If someone who has a basic understanding of 3D would get it quickly. If you get me. So, like, you're not learning the tools, you're learning the principles behind that class, that topic or that subject. You're learning the principles, the idea, not necessarily the tool.
Right. That's what we try to do. I mean, we definitely try to have all of our classes be like that. And I think for the most part, like if we're teaching like a design class, right? Which I think that's what you're going to take, right? You're taking design boot camp.
Yeah, I'm taking design boot camp.
Yeah. So design boot camp is a good example where it takes place inside Photoshop. That's the app that you're in most of the time in that class. But the principles taught in it are pretty easy to translate to Affinity Designer or GIMP or like any of these other, like design apps, right? Animation Bootcamp is all about animation principles. The problem is animation's very technical, right? Like it's more technical than design, I think. So I think that if I don't even know, like I can't even think of an open source 2D app, but let's say that Hit Film or Fusion really well.
Blender is an open source 2D app.
Yeah, so you could watch Animation Bootcamp and you could translate it to this app, I think. But there's so many, I mean, you've used After Effects, so there's like a million little quirks to it and little tricks and things that help you, where in motion design, it gets a little tricky to separate those things. I wonder if maybe in like more traditional animation where you're just doing character animation or you're doing like TV shows and feature films, things like that, it's a little bit more it's like a little bit more modular. Like here is how lighting works, right? Like you can just learn lighting, and then in Cinema 4D, the lights work this way, in Blender, they work this way. But when you're talking about here's how you rig a character in After Effects, that does not apply to anything else.
Everything.
You know, sure. And even the way you animate in After Effects, a lot of the things you're doing are just really kind of unique to it. So I 100% agree with you, by the way. Like I'm just kind of talking through like these are the challenges that we would face if we were like, let's make an animation class using open source software. We could, if one existed that like could do most of the things. The other challenge that would bring up though, which would be more something you would have to deal with if you took that class, is that, and maybe it's different in different countries, but in the United States, if you want to go work at a big studio, you need to work in whatever tool they're using. There's a pipeline typically at places that you go work.
There's another thing in the sense that company has to provide the software to you.
Yep.
And grasping the software wouldn't be as difficult because you already have experience with the principles. So getting the software wouldn't be difficult. It would just be like someone who knew Maya can pick up Blender in a day because he understood the principles of 3D before.
Right.
So that way you're not pirating any software. You have enough experience to get a job. All you have to do is just spend a week or two in a new software when it's time to get a job. That's what I'm saying. Like
that's interesting. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah.
Like thinking about
no, you're right.
Solves it.
Yeah, and I think that the one I think would be the trickiest is After Effects, just because it works in such a unique way. Like there's other softwares that used to be more widely used than After Effects. Like there's software called Flame, which when I was starting out, that's kind of what a lot of artists use. And those artists, when they would have to learn After Effects, couldn't. Some of them, they just hated it.
That's why I like Calvary.
Yeah.
Why I mentioned Calvary, I know Calvary isn't open source, but then it is affordable. I can buy Calvary right now, like I can pay for it right now, and I wouldn't really be affected because it's affordable. Yep. Like that's why I mentioned Calvary. Calvary is kind of like an After Effects copycat, to be honest. But it's unlike an After Effects copycat. It goes over the problems After Effects has for a specific task. That is animation. If someone from Calvary uses After Effects, they'll be able to grasp it better than other softwares because that thing has gotten better. And Blender, if you know Blender literally, the interface of Blender right now, it looks like 60% like Cinema 4D, if I'm being honest. It just looks like they copied Cinema 4D, to be honest. So like, I started from Blender like 4 years ago. Like my 3D journey started in Blender. Picking up Cinema 4D was just a day thing for me. Like it was just, let me watch a few Great Gorilla tutorial, how to do this ball rolling and this ball rolling animation. That was it for me. I feel like if you can, like now they're better. So I think at your time, there isn't a standard for the way software for certain things should look like. There wasn't that standard there, but now there's a standard. There's a way a software, the system should feel like. And I feel like most softwares are in that, like they have that same feel. So if you thought with those open source softwares and you thought with those softwares that are more affordable, you made it in a way that it accounts for them. If people are making that transition, it won't be as difficult.
That's a really good point, man. That's a really good point. So, okay, so we've got, there's the financial piece of it. There's the access to software, which is, I'm really curious, like why that is still an issue, but the open source thing does solve that, So like, what other problems are there?
I think like an imbalance in opportunities. We need more Nigerian, more African creators being recognized. I mean, Adobe recognizes this Nigerian creator. I've forgotten his name. I think his name is Femi Koka. So like that's like a win for me because finally Adobe recognizes Nigeria on the map of the world because they have a Nigerian creator. So we just need more Nigerian people just like having the opportunities, having the same opportunities as if I'm being honest.
So Roland, so what do you think the reason is that so like companies like Adobe, you know, and I mean, just any company that's sort of like services artists, there seems to be certain places in the world that like they find talent from, right? And so it's like the US obviously is the main place because that's where most of these companies are based, right? Like Adobe and Maxon and you know, like Grayscale, Gorilla, School Motion, Red Giant, like we're all in the US, right? And then you've got countries that are in Europe where there's like this really tight link between the communities in, say, England and the United States, or Germany and the United States, or Canada and France, or, you know, whatever. And then there's countries that it seems like you don't really hear about them. And, you know, Nigeria is certainly one of them. Like, you know, there's not like a big cultural awareness of what the artistic scene is in Nigeria right now, you know, in the United States. So I'm curious if you have any theories why that is. Like, why does Nigeria, and it's not just Nigeria. Nigeria is probably more, you know, in the public awareness than a lot of countries in Africa. But it's still like, you know, if you think of artists, like, oh, we'll go find someone from Japan, or we'll get someone from Belgium or the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It's like, why not? Why isn't Nigeria right there? Is it like, is it a communications thing? Like there's just not a lot of communication between the US industry and Nigerian industry. Like how, because I think you're right. That's the thing. It's like if Nigerian artists were featured more and had more of a platform, I think a lot of this stuff would just start to gravitate the right direction, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I don't have a specific theory on why that is, but if I was going to say the easiest thing I would say is the distrust of Nigerians. Like most people in other countries just don't trust Nigerians. That's the easiest thing that will come to my head. It might not be true, but because I'm saying you people because a lot of people I've met outside have been really nice to me, but the stories I've been seeing online are just terrible. Nigerians, I know Nigeria has a bad reputation for corruption. I think that is a factor in it.
Right.
That's one thing I see, but it might not be true because it is just what I haven't experienced it myself because I'm probably not a corrupt person. I'm saying that laughing because everyone is literally corrupt in one sense or the other, but then I'm not corrupt. I'm not the corrupt person.
You're pure. You're the goat of being not corrupt.
Yeah. But like,
yeah.
I think it's because people don't trust Africans or Nigerians well enough. And I think it's also the media's portrayal of these countries. Like when I watch CNN, when they show Nigeria, they don't show the beautiful parts of Lagos or the beautiful parts in other states in Nigeria. They show like
right.
the north that is like the world, and the north is really, really beautiful. Like the north has the best places in Nigeria, but they show the parts with the poor people and the part that Boko Haram, the terrorists, is showing. And when you talk about Nigerians, they talk about how Nigerians, a couple of Nigerian or West African scammers scammed like an old lady in America or something like that. And so, like, I feel like people generally don't have trust Nigerians or Africans well enough. And there are a lot of Nigerians that are scared of actually putting themselves out there and actually breaking these borders and actually having conversations that are not like when we were talking, I was telling you about the fact that I was so scared because I was very happy. I was like before I tweeted to you, I was like, this guy is beyond my reach. I feel like that happens with a lot of Nigerians. They're like, oh, this white guy or these people in that country, they are beyond my reach. Reaching out to them for this opportunity might seem big. Right, I think that is also a factor. I think I've mentioned like two factors now: corruption and also like the distrust of Nigerians, and also the fact that Nigerians themselves are scared to reach out. If I'm being honest, that's what I think.
That's interesting to me. Like, because you know, part of it is, it sounds like part of it is just, and I totally agree with you, by the way. I think that the impression, I'm making an assumption here, but I'm sure there's like some truth to it. I think most Americans, and probably not so much the ones in our industry that are really kind of like artists and open-minded and stuff, I don't think they have the right mental picture of what Nigeria is like, right? And I remember, so me and my family, we love to travel. And one of the biggest things that we're really, really like prioritizing is bringing our kids all over the world and letting them see it, because
Come to Nigeria.
I would love to go. I would love to go to Nigeria. We were looking at going to Nigeria last year because we were like, we went to Japan, and that was sort of like that's the most, I guess, like just different culture we've been to so far. But I remember like 2 years ago, we went to Croatia, and Croatia is not a country you hear about much here. And I had no idea what it was like, but in my head, I had some idea like, okay, they used to be communist or something, and I've just got I'm just got these dumb American kind of stereotypes in my head. And you go there, and it is like the most beautiful place you've ever been, and everyone's wonderful, and they and it's a modern country. It's like there's skyscrapers and stuff like that, and it's like I imagine that a lot of people, if they think of Nigeria, they think of what you see on the news. It's not like downtown Lagos with like beautiful skyscrapers and bridges, and like I've seen pictures. But when you're but you think of like I don't know, it's like, oh, well, they're not going to have, After Effects there. It's just like this, it's like this backwards way of, it's this backwards way of looking at it. Yeah. And I know it's not just Nigeria either. I'm sure that that trickles through to most countries in Africa, because it's just, we don't have, for some reason, a connection to it the way we should, and it seems like we have the internet. So shouldn't there be conversations like this happening daily? Like this seems like,
like for the most part, until this year, I became a beast at reaching out to people. Like I would just send people messages at random, even though I really don't know much about them. I just send them hi and we'll become friends.
Yeah.
But like, even with that, even with the internet, I don't know, people are still scared to just reach out, just say hi, and just have interactions with these people. I think it's also because Nigerians are really, really proud people, I would say. I mean, I literally call myself ROJ the GOAT.
I was going to say, you call yourself the GOAT, so
yeah. Like, so you see a creator who has just gotten big to an extent, and you try to send them, like a Nigerian creator, like they're like your friends, like they are people they're Nigerians, they're like, they're practically your blood. But then you send them a DM, like, bro, this is what I'm passionate about. Can you give me some pointers? Can you just tell me what you learned in your experience? And the Nigerian creator that is big, that is so like the tech bro, would not respond to you.
Right.
And I think that's like, it feels weird where your own people don't respond to you. What about these white people? Why would they respond to you if your own people are not responding to you? So most creators are just not reaching out to other companies. Like for me now, I really want to get a job in Man vs. Machine, and I'm planning to reach out next year. Like, people need to just put themselves out there. Nigerians need to put themselves out there, because there are a lot of amazing creators in Nigeria. A lot. Like, you go through Instagram and you'll be like, wow, someone from Nigeria made this. Someone from Nigeria really did this. I mean, my own country, and I'm saying someone from Nigeria did this. There are a lot of really, really amazing creators in Nigeria, but they're not putting themselves beyond Nigeria, and it's awful.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? I want to ask you something, Roland, because and this is kind of a touchy subject, but I want to just go right at it. I said we're going to go right at this, man. Because you said a couple of times, like, you were nervous reaching out to someone, like, why would this white guy want to talk to me? And I'm curious how much like especially right now in the United States, race, like everyone's thinking about race. And I'm curious how it is in Nigeria. Like, is that a thing that's like on your mind a lot? Does it feel like, because obviously a lot of the industry, especially motion design, it's in the Western world. It's like, it's in the US and Canada and stuff like that. And most of the faces you see are this color, right? And everyone knows that. Does that, like, how does that affect, and I've talked with people here, so I kind of know, I have some idea of sort of how that feels to Black artists here, but how does it feel to you, as a Nigerian?
To me, it actually really doesn't matter if you're white, black, or another color. To Nigerians, Nigerians are very weird set of human beings, to be honest. We're racist to ourselves. We treat white people.
Right, you're only racist to yourselves. I like that.
Like, because you see black people every day, when a white person comes, the person is treated with more importance. So like that's there isn't really racism on
Right.
our mind all the time. But
It's
when
like
we see
it's like backwards racism or something.
yeah, when we see a
Yeah.
white person, we see
You're
the
doing
person
it
like
wrong,
a king.
actually.
Like we see the person like a king. Do you get
Yeah.
like this person is a king because the person is white and is coming to Nigeria. That's how Nigerians are. Nigeria has this thing that if you come, you spend your time learning in Nigeria, you school in Nigeria, you're good. You're as good as someone who is working at Apple. You're like a
Yeah.
very good developer. You're as good as someone who is working at Apple or Google. But then you won't get jobs with Nigerian companies. Yeah. Nobody values you. Nobody cares where you're from. But then you go outside the country, work with anybody, no matter who it is, just work with someone outside the country and come back to this country. People will treat you with more importance because you've
Right.
interacted with the white guy. So we're kind of like racist to ourselves. We're like, since this
Right.
person has interacted with the white guy, this person must be very important. This person must.
Mm.
I
See,
think
that's
that.
really that's interesting because okay, it reminds me. So I don't know why that dynamic exists in Nigeria. I know that like there's a lot of places, even in the U.S., that have that kind of relationship with another place. Like I remember in Boston's a big city, but
Hmm,
it's right next to New York City, and New York City is like the hub of advertising and motion design, and so there was this dynamic of no one takes you seriously if you live in Boston and you've only worked in Boston. But if you go to New York for 2 years and work there and then come back, now you're like a real kind of artist or professional.
and
So it's kind of like a self-esteem thing. But I wonder if that's also could be a key to sort of helping break Nigerian artists out of that. Is like because like it's probably difficult to say have Nigerian artists go intern at Buck and stuff like that. It's more complicated with visas and stuff like that. I'm sure Buck would do that and love it. But over the internet with like mentorships and we can communicate pretty easily over Zoom, even though we're thousands of miles away. I wonder if there's some way that you can use technology to sort of overcome that and say like, hey, well, I'm from Nigeria and I've lived here my whole life, but I just did a 6-month internship at Gunner in Detroit. And so now take me seriously. Like maybe I'm just sort of like throwing ideas out here because I love this conversation and I want to try to like, if there's
I think
one half good idea that comes out of it, that'd be awesome.
I think the first step is Nigerians themselves being confident in their skill and actually going out to reach out to people.
So how are
And
you confident? Because you're Nigerian and you're confident. You reached out to me.
I'm
You've
actually
reached
a
out
very
to.
ambitious person. Like
So
that's what
you're just born that way. Like you're just sort
yeah,
of
I'm just
that's how
born
you
that
are.
way.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
the
Okay.
only thing I got
Yeah.
from my birth. That's like the
Yeah.
most valuable thing. I'm naturally like when I was younger, I gave my like when I was like in JSS1, I don't know what class it is in. Like my teacher asked me, "What do you want to be in the future?" And I listed like 10 things, and I said I was going to do everything. That's how ambitious I am. Like
Right.
I think about the biggest thing, and I really want to do that thing. I think once you grow that, it kind of beats that, like life beats all that away from you. But then that's how I'm naturally just not scared. But then I'm always cool with nobody people not I became cool with people not responding because I'm used to being ignored in a way. So like I don't know, I'm kind of used to it, reaching out to people.
It's good actually. I mean, like, because most of the time, if someone's ignoring you, they're really just like too busy to take the time to write a nice thing back, and then a week goes by and they feel bad. But it's like it does turn a lot of people off, and they won't try because they're afraid of rejection. And if you're naturally not super afraid of it, that's gonna help you a lot. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, like I'm still like I think growing up has made me more scared, but it's not something you can totally fight. I made it like a joke in the beginning, but then I'm not totally afraid of reaching out. There are some people that I feel like these people are really bigger than me, and there's some people I just reach out without thinking about it. But I've learned to just treat these people as humans. They have emotions. They are not just some names with big numbers on social media.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, of
are human
course.
beings. Just say I like just be human.
So we've got the currency difference problem. We've got the access to software, which maybe having open source classes, it gets you halfway there.
Yeah.
Um, there's the what we're talking about now, which is sort of like
Racism.
this, yeah, the self racism or the yeah, the self. You guys are racist to yourselves. But to me, it's almost like it seems like, I don't know what a better word is, but it's like a confidence problem, and it probably comes, I'm sure it's sort of a thing, a legacy of the history of Nigeria and probably colonialism and other things like that. But I also wonder too, like, when so one of the things that we're really trying to do in the United States and with our audience right now is we're very aware that I think a lot of people who want to get into the industry, it's really helpful to have a role model. And it's just because we're human beings and we're wired, like, we're all kind of wired to be tribal, and it's helpful if that person resembles you somehow, right? Doesn't have to look exactly like you or be exactly like you, but like if you look at motion design and you see a bunch of white males and you are a Black female, then like there's not actually like, I mean, this isn't true. Like there are blockers, but it's like, it's more of like, I think a perception thing. Like we need role models, right? And so I'm wondering in Nigeria and in Africa, is like in the United States, there's awards and there's websites and blogs and features and this and that and podcasts. Is there a version of that you have in Nigeria or just even in Africa as a whole, where artists doing cool stuff get like lifted up and now there's like kind of, oh, look at that person, and there's inspiration that can kind of lift up and bring everybody's confidence up,
I think for the other industries in Nigeria, there is other parts of the design industry, the developers, like the tech guys, they have systems for that. There is a system for UI UX developers to be lifted up. There is Stigma Africa. There are design communities that help you, that bring people up. But then for motion design, it's inexistent because motion design is just starting now. Like motion design has been around for a long time, even in Nigeria, but it's not a defined career path. A child cannot wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a motion designer. No one does that. Like
nobody.
I didn't do that. I just go into motion design. Like it's not a defined career path in Nigeria. So like even if there were some motion designers, they're only limited to people who are doing graphic design and offer it as a service. There's no dedicated motion designer. Right. The dedicated motion, there used to be like this guy, his name was Spencer Zio, and he was like the most dedicated motion designer. If I was like the one guy who is like fully dedicated to motion design, and he did animation for big companies like MultiChoice, even MTV, even Nickelodeon, and there isn't just that in Nigeria. I would say that with time, as a community grows, we would have that for motion design. For now, we just have to work on getting features from people outside.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to like absorb everything, Roland, so that like, next time my team and I are talking about like, okay, how can we, because it's getting easier and easier for us to help artists that, like, I mean, honestly, it's really easy to help artists in the US or in most countries, but it's like when Nigeria, but it's really Africa. Like, aside from maybe, and I've never been to Africa. I don't know that much about it.
No, you should come like next year.
Oh my gosh, dude, my wife spent, it's like my wife wants to go right now. Like, so she spent, I think 3 weeks in Uganda as part of her master's program. Wow. And it changed her whole life. And Uganda is a very different country, obviously, but she's like, it's kind of what I was talking about. Like, I don't want my kids to grow up. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. Yeah. And I would go to Disney World or I'd go visit my cousins in Georgia or something. I never really traveled. The only country I went to before I was an adult was Israel because we're Jewish and my parents would take us there. But then as an adult to go to countries that are just so different was so eye-opening, and I want my kids to see that. And I also don't want them to have the wrong impression. I don't want them to like think, oh my gosh, Africa is, it's dirt roads. It's like, no, like, I mean, I'm sure there's some of that, but there's also like giant cities and like billion-dollar companies. And I just heard an interview. Actually, it was a Nigerian founder. I can't remember what company it was.
Is it Paystar?
It was this Nigerian founder, he made a company to allow people to make payments, like electronic payments and do refunds. And Stripe just
Paystack.
bought them for it. Is it Paystack? Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, like
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, yeah, there's a Nigerian tech company that just got bought by Stripe for $200 million. Like these are things I don't think people know. And I think it's part of the misperception that like keeps Nigeria and most of Africa hidden from the West. It's like, and maybe part of it is you called it being racist against yourself, but it feels like from my end, it's a lack of confidence, or it's imposter syndrome. Maybe that's what it is. It's like,
I think it's a combination of all of these
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I think if you remove one, you're still going to go back to other problems.
yeah, yeah. You're
Like
right. Yeah,
it's a combination. It's like a pizza with many. It's like a problem, but it's a pizza with many sprinkles of sections to it.
right.
And if you cannot like take out one problem, you still have other problems on that pizza.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well,
Like
I want to, like, your insights are amazing, man. So I'd love to, once this stream's over, we should still stay in touch and talk about this more, because I want to make sure, like, if there's something, School Motion can't solve everything, obviously, but if there's
true.
things we can help solve, at least in motion design, like a little, if we can make this little piece a little bit better, that's what I want to do,
I
man.
think you
You
should.
asked
I
me
think
why. You asked me earlier. You were like, "Why did you start School of Motion?" I originally started it not necessarily for selfish reasons, but it was really like I wanted to find a way to work and use my skills just in something that felt more holistic with the way I wanted to live and my family and all of that. And what it's turned into now feels like this insane big opportunity to help people, and it's helping people in small ways, like, oh, that person's better at animation now, but it's also big ways sometimes. It's like we have a scholarship program and we give classes away to people who apply, and then sometimes they write back and they're like, I just got a job because of this, thank you. This feels like one of those opportunities, man. Like maybe there's some way, in some little way, we can help, even if it's just your group of designer friends, like because it feels like,
I think you should start School of
you know,
Motion Africa. Sorry, I just
well, listen, it's really fun. It's funny that this hasn't come up yet. For some reason, I don't know why. I honestly can't remember how this happened, but like the unofficial theme song for School of Motion is Africa by the band Toto. I don't know if you know the song, but it's
no, I
it's
know
like,
the theme song, but like I really don't know the song, the specific song.
if you
Like
heard it, I imagine you'd be like, oh, I know this song. It's like one of the most famous like songs ever,
I
like
think
a
I'll
pop
look it up.
song. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I could sing it for you right now if you like that. But yeah, so no, I mean, School of Motion Africa would be amazing, man. And so, okay, so let's pretend we're starting School of Motion Africa, all right?
Yeah.
And so what needs to be different about it? Like, do you think that I mean, obviously like Nigerians speak perfect English. So and I don't know if that's all of them. I assume most of them do. So so the language barrier isn't a huge issue. Now, what
There isn't
about,
a language barrier. There might be an
yeah,
access
so
barrier, but language is not a problem.
right. And so then what about, so there's the software problem, access to that, the pricing would need to be more appropriate. And then what else? Like, what else am I not thinking of that you need? Do you think can it be the same teachers? Does it need to be teachers that, that come from Africa, so that there's sort of more like, just understanding the culture and stuff like that? Or do you think it even matters?
If I'm going to be honest, I don't think it matters to change much.
Yep.
I think the point of starting School of Motion Africa is bringing all the best things about the current School of Motion to Africa, like making it easier for Africans to access it. I don't think
Yeah.
putting an African man would really change much. I think it would help a little bit, but I don't think Nigerians really care who is there. Though they
Yeah.
might be a little bit biased if it's a white person, but they don't really care. They might put more importance if it's a white person, but they don't really care. if it's a white person and you have an African endorsing it, so it's like two ways. If you have a white person and you have a black person showing that, okay, this is a white person thing. Sorry, this is a white and a white. This is a black and a white person thing. Like, it doesn't feel like just a bunch of white people come to Nigeria
Right.
and create courses. It feels like white people and Nigerians are collaborating. So if you have that sense of collaborations with people in Africa,
Yeah.
I think it would really work. Like, just have that sense of collaboration, show more black people, basically.
Yeah.
Like, Africa is a Figma. Do you know Figma?
Yep.
Like, they have a very big African community, and they do this by, even though they have white people come in, they do this by having collaborations with a lot of black UI UX designers and just featuring their work. Procreate, I think, does something like that too. I'm not sure. They like have collaborations with Africans. They have like, it's not like just a bunch of white people come and sell some things
Right.
to you. It's a collaboration. And I don't think changing your
Yeah.
stickers would make it any less of a collaboration.
Yeah. I love that though, because I mean, it's kind of funny and we're laughing and you're saying, well, if it's a white person, maybe they'll respect them more. That's awful. Like, it's horrible. And I know that I can't just like snap my fingers and make that go away either. But I love your solution of like, look, the goal should be like, what I would love is if in 20 years there's like, School of Motion, there's MoGraph Mentor, there's all these things that are just accessible to everybody. It doesn't matter where you live, but also there's like an amazing art school with a motion design program in Nigeria, taught by Nigerians.
Yes.
Like that should be the way it is. And if it requires some sort of bootstrapping to get there, where it's like, all right, I mean, it's funny. Like, I think especially right now, a lot of Americans, it's like when you say things like, white people come in and try to sell you stuff, it's like, oh, that's exactly the opposite of what we want. It's like, it's exactly the opposite. It's like, but I understand that, like, that's probably how it feels a lot of times when, corporations come in, if they're not like,
I think
making relationships with local talent, yeah.
Yes. No, I think Disney faced backlash with something like that. I think you can just learn from Disney's mistake. Like, people were skeptical when they created Black Panther and they created The Lion King and they collaborated with Beyonce. Most people just felt like this is just a bunch of white people in suits. This is one of the reasons why I corporate. Just a bunch of white people in suits paying for you to feel like you're special.
Yeah.
Even
is that yeah.
Really,
yeah.
So you need to make it feel less like that. You need to collaborate with, like, you need to actually have people in, like, even if it's not a white person teaching, you have to have black people in your board of directors actually working, actually collaborating and sharing their ideas and actually having, like, it should be a collaboration. It shouldn't be about white or black. Just be humans collaborating, honestly.
Yeah. I don't think it's not even white or black. It's more like, I mean, I think the white or black thing just comes from, like, if you're born in Fort Worth, Texas, or, I mean, my family, like, we come from Eastern Europe, right? So that's why I'm white, and you come from Nigeria. That's why you're black. Like, but Nigeria has its own culture, and there's probably inside jokes that I don't know. And like, if you took you'll take a School of Motion class, you're taking design boot camp. The instructor is Mike Frederick. He is amazing.
I love his work.
You're going to learn so much. And he's from Georgia. Okay. So he's got like a Southern accent. Like, he's got a serious Southern drawl, and he makes jokes that are hilarious to people like me who are from the South and stuff. And I think you'll love it. Right. But like, if you're, if you're like a young kid and you're not super confident, you're also very confident, Roland. So I think that kind of like lets you just bust through a lot of things. But if you're not confident, I think it really does make a difference if that person, at least they don't have to look just like you. They don't have to talk just like you, but there's some connection. Like, hey, we're both Nigerians. Hey, we both love this local, like, band or something that, like, no one from outside of this area has ever heard of. It's stuff like that.
I think, like, what you can do is
foods and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I think what you can
Here's
do
what
is
I want to do. We're gonna do a conference in Africa. We're gonna, like, fly in all these motion designers. We're gonna do it in Nigeria, and I want to eat
Yes.
Nigerian food, and I want to listen to Nigerian music. That's what I want.
I'll take you to eat pounded yam and amala. This like I'm giving like you should go look it up. It's like the best things in Lagos for me.
Oh, I
I
love
think
it.
it's
I
in
love
Nigerian
it. Yeah, but I
and
think like
jollof rice.
honestly, what I'm excited about, like, you know, there's a lot of like real challenging things to address to try and help Nigeria and Africa, like as a continent, kind of overcome a lot of these hurdles to getting level with everybody else in terms of motion design. But I think like what I'm getting from all of this is like it's really just about connecting with people, you know, like, and hopefully
Exactly. Like
I don't know how many people are watching this, but hopefully like they're seeing like, oh, you're in Nigeria, I'm in Florida. And like, look, we get it. Dude, I bet we'd be buddies. Like if you lived close, like we'd I'd be like I'm twice your
I'd
age.
love
So
to
I'd be like your big brother. I'd be like your big brother. You'd be like the cool little brother who would teach me like what's cool and how to use TikTok and stuff.
Yeah.
And I would and I would give you career advice. And
Yeah. I think all my life I've been with old people. That's why I probably grow up fast.
Yeah, you're an old soul.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like you like made a very valid point. It's not about racism and all that. It's more about building connections, building true human connections.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that until you like come and experience the culture and until you like have interactions with these people. And I feel like that should be the next frontier. Like maybe have interactions with more Nigerian creators, like experience what it's like to be like for me, I really love the Japanese culture. I always imagine I'll end up with a Japanese person later in my life.
Yeah.
I really love Japanese culture. So Japan is like one place I want to go to and actually feel
It's
connected
amazing.
to. Yeah, like and Japan is as like the highest, sorry, the lowest. No, is it lowest? I don't think I'm saying it right. But then the highest life expectancy in the world. So like I'm wondering how do they live so long? It's just amazing. Like how do a Japanese person live so long? It's crazy. Yeah, the life
Yeah.
expectancy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and we went there last year, and I mean there's a lot of amazing things about Japan that I don't know that they feel amazing to people who grew up in Japan, right? Like just feels normal. You know, my
Yeah.
daughter, like I'll tell you, like, and anyone who's watching this who's been to Japan will back me up. So there's a convenience store chain here. I don't know if you have them in Africa, but here you have 7-Eleven is this store that it's like you go in to buy soda or like buy a bag of chips or something. It's a convenience store. You go buy junk food in it. And they
Yeah.
have those in Japan, but in Japan you walk in and they have like gourmet sushi and these like beautiful like dishes you can buy, and it's like it's like
Yeah.
everything,
Fish steamed ice cream.
like
So like
everything
fish
there.
flavored ice cream. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah, and also like a lot of the things you're probably imagining, like just the attention to detail and like
yeah.
the way, I mean, it's crazy just to, you'll walk past a shop and you'll see someone sweeping, but like it's like people don't, I feel like it's just different culture. Like people focus on things there and they master them, and it's like a little bit, it's like things just sort of like there's a million people everywhere. It's like so crowded, but everybody's quiet. But it's quiet, which I don't know how it is in Nigeria. Here, everyone talks loud like me, and it's like loud all the time in the U.S.
Everyone
In
is
Japan,
loud.
it's quiet, like
Loud.
yeah. So, but it's like, but having spent, you know, we spent 3 weeks there. I feel totally comfortable in Japan now, and I want to feel that way in Nigeria, man. So I'm coming sooner or later.
Like,
and you're gonna tell me where to go. Yeah, we're gonna go out to dinner.
yes, we are. Like, just let me
Yeah.
know when you're coming. We could actually start planning the conference immediately after this call.
I love
would-
it.
Yeah,
I
like-
love it.
Like when you have an idea, just like one thing I learned this year is when you have an idea, just
Yeah.
go for it. You don't know where it's going to take you.
Yeah,
Like,
and who? So if you had to pick an artist to like speak at it, which one would you want?
do you mean a Nigerian artist or someone outside?
Like if we were gonna, because I'd want to bring people to Nigeria so that they could experience it. So like bring, you know,
I would love to speak to. I would have said Solomon Sekani, but I'm going to see Solomon Sekani. So I'm trying to plan the live stream with him.
yeah.
But then I would say G Monk.
Oh yeah, I
I
would love that
just
too. I
love
love Gmonkey.
I love his work, and I don't know how
Yeah.
he thinks and how he does it. It's someone I secretly I admire his work, and I've always admired him since I found out about his work. Like it feels like I don't know how to explain it. It feels his work feel ambient, like they feel like a space, and when you look at it, you feel like you're in that space.
Yeah.
And how he plays with light, and I would love to just have conversations with him about is like how does it do it? I know he does a lot of practical work based on the behind the scene, but I'm always wondering
Yeah.
how do you get that feeling of ambience in your work? How do you make it feel like how do you make someone feel like they are inside that weird 3D abstract work that you're showing? And
Yeah, he's a genius, that guy. He's yeah. All right, so we're bringing Gmonk, and then yeah, I mean, I want like I would love it to be exactly what we're talking
people,
about. It's like oh, Beep would come.
yeah, but then it won't stop pressing. It just
People
keeps
would
saying,
come.
I said,
Yeah, but okay. Well, we'll talk more about this. So okay, so I have 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure. Are there questions that anyone has on YouTube or
oh
anything
yeah,
that we can
we
answer?
practically touched every other question that like I have like three other questions, but everything we've talked about centered around the question. But the final
Yeah.
question I'll ask you before we look into the comments is how do you see learning in the future? Like, how do you see the future of learning motion design?
Yeah, I see the future of learning, period, not just motion design, but just period. I think it's going to be a lot more about here are 10 options. Pick the one that's best for you. Because I think the one thing that, you know, all of the like horrible devastation and disruption that like COVID-19 has caused this year, one of the things that it has done, which is really bad, but I think
Mm,
in the long run might actually be a good thing, is it has really shown parents and anyone who cares about education the enormous problems with the way we teach children, right? Anything, the way school works, the way college works. It is just the emperor. There's a story here called "The Emperor Has No Clothes," and it's about realizing that like something you thought was great is terrible. And
mm,
so I, you know, I've spoken out about how I feel about art schools here and the price of education, all of these things. But I think in the end, if someone wants, if like you're super ambitious, Roland, and you're really driven, so you could probably just make your own curriculum like you did on YouTube and teach yourself motion design. That's an option. That's free. Or you can take a Skillshare class, or you could take a school motion class, or you could go to you know, Full Sail, like a 2-year program, or you could spend $250,000 and go to like this amazing, you know, 4-year experience somewhere. You know, and you have all of these options, and they're all okay. So I think that's the future of all education, and motion design in particular. I mean, it is like part of it is art education. Part of it is like
film.
I might get slack for this, but it's like it's almost like learning to be a plumber too. It's like you have to learn you have to be good at the art part or your work won't be good. But also it's complicated tools. It's complicated software, it's video, it's frame rates, it's all this stuff. You know, 3D gets really technical, and you have to just learn that stuff too. And that stuff, especially, you can learn for
Technicalities.
free, you can learn for cheap, you know, it's like there's a million ways to do it. So that's the short version, is I think it's whatever you want, you know, it's what's appropriate for you.
It's going to be, I think the word for it is flexibility.
Yeah,
It's not like
exactly.
you have to go to school, go to college, or your life is like, I think I'm extremely passionate about this education topic. That's why I chipped it in a little bit.
Yeah,
Like before, there are gatekeepers, but now there are no gatekeepers. Anybody can be
exactly.
anything you want. Like that is one thing I like our parents which they have and they're jealous, to be honest. You
Yeah,
can be anything you want. You could pick up your phone today, make a funny video, and you're famous in a month.
yeah,
Like it's crazy. Flexibility is like is the biggest is like the gift the internet gave to us, and I feel like the future of learning, exactly like you said, it is going to be flexibility. You can pick whatever course you want, you can be anything. You can, I feel like I just wish our parents understood the fact that flexibility is the future, because most African parents are strong on the fact that their child must go to school. Your child must get
Right.
a degree. If you don't do that, you would basically have a fight with your parent. I had a fight. I almost had a fight with my dad. Like, though he's late now, he died 2 years ago. But then that was one of the things that we thought about the most, which is he wanted me to be a doctor. Like, just go and he wanted all his children to be doctors. Like, just
Right.
go and learn medicine. Sorry, just go to school, get admission for medicine, or just go to school. Like, just go to school. Everyone just wants you to go to school. But the way
Right.
the gift of the internet is that flexibility. You don't have to go to school to learn. Though I don't think school should be ruled out. I just think schools need to adjust. Schools need to realize that people are different and they shouldn't learn one way. You should give them options, or else they're just learning to pass an exam. They're just learning
Yeah,
to
and I
get.
think like you're you know, what I'm assuming is your dad had your best interest in mind. He, you know, in his mind, I'm guessing he probably thought, like, my dad was a surgeon before he retired, and he never pushed us to be a surgeon, but he would sort of say things like, you know, if you want to grow up and own a house one day, you know, you're going to need to make money, and doctors make money. And so it basically was always about, I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be able to make a living. And I know that this is a way to do that. And the truth is, it is no longer a guaranteed way to do that. Like
Yeah.
anything, you know, like you can't just say, well, being a doctor makes money, so I'll go be a doctor. No, you won't, because it's hard to be a doctor. And if you don't want to be a doctor, chances are you will not get through med school. You won't
Yeah.
survive. It's like, I have so many friends rolling. Like, my version of that was everybody who graduated college and didn't know what they wanted to do. They went to law school and they became
Wow.
lawyers, and most of them hate it. You know, and that's no, like, cool. So they make money, I guess, but
They're
I'd
rich.
rather
That's
I'd
stability.
rather my kids grow up, make no money, but they're happy, honestly.
Yeah, like at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you just do what you're happy with. I think like I have a lot of people who like there are a lot of countless Nigerian stories of students, first class students, like they're the best of the best that don't have jobs and they're just sitting at home and they can't even get a job and they can't make money. And you have someone who just has the internet and is making more than your salary in a year.
Yeah.
It's just really, really crazy. And the future of work and the future of learning is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
for
I
work,
agree 100%.
anybody can be anywhere and you can decide to either be working full-time or remote. That is the future. That is the future. That's where I see work. And that's where I see where the world is going. Flexibility. You can be
Love
anything.
it.
Yeah. So like, let's look at the audience question and we can get out of here. Yeah. I wish you can talk for. I wish you can
I
talk
know.
for
I
like.
wish I for some reason I had my calendar open, so someone booked a meeting with me in like 9 minutes. So I'm like, ugh, because this is more fun. I would rather, like, maybe I could
Yeah.
cancel it while we're on the live stream.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Because versus for us, I'm looking. Wow, there are so many comments. Even my brother and my uncle is here. Wow, shout out to you guys.
Right on. Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect it to come to my live stream. I'm really amazed. I'm looking for a good question. Used to struggle with affording schoolism and courses. Wow, there's so many questions. Um, wow, I don't think I can sort through all these questions. It's just too much.
Maybe I should ask you a question, Roland.
Yes, please.
Yeah, let me turn the tables. Okay. So well, here, so let me ask you this. So right now, so you've got your YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right? And you're doing motion design. What's the biggest, like, challenge you have right now? Like, what's the thing that you're struggling with that you want to kind of, you know, get better at or move past?
I think the first thing I want to get better at is communication. I feel like if I can if I can solve that communication problem, I would be a billionaire right now because I would know how to
I
talk to
love you, man.
clients. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like, I would know how to talk to clients. Motion design is, I did a video about the fact that motion design is not about, I got this idea from Woodcraft Mentor. Motion design
Yep.
is not about making the most fancy animations. It's not
Right.
about the animations. It's not about the visuals. It's all about what you're trying to say with those visuals. So like if you know how to communicate, it will change the way your work, the quality of your work. Because you understand that this visual I'm saying, this visual I'm having, does it say what I want it to say? Is it speaking
Right.
to the right people? Am I communicating the way these people would understand? So like one thing I think that if I get better at it, it will change my life completely. To change how I interact with friends, to change how I work, to change everything for me is communication. And I'm not the worst communicator, but I wish I can get better.
Interesting. When you say communication, what do you mean?
Just generally like talking, sharing your ideas to someone, telling your ideas,
Yeah.
expressing yourself.
I think you're
Like,
pretty good at it, actually. Well, so I'm just trying to think of like what, because it's funny. We talked a little bit like briefly about the idea of having a stack of talents, things that you're good at that. And one of the things that I would add to my stack is I've always been good at writing. Like I've just like comes naturally
I
to
think your
me.
brother is better.
My
Shout
brother
out to
is
Adam.
bad. No, my brother. He's actually a professional published author, so he should be better. Yeah, and he proofreads everything I write now, so thank God.
Yeah.
But that's the point. The point is, I don't have to be amazing at writing, but I was good
Yeah.
enough. And it's like I can tell you right now, I don't know how it is in Nigeria, but here in the United States, writing is a skill that seems to be like in trouble. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way schools work, and also just the fact that like, my daughter, if she's chatting with someone on like Facebook Messenger and she doesn't know how to spell a word, she'll just like hit the Siri button and say the word and it'll spell it for her. It's like it's easy to get away with not actually practicing writing. um, it's a superpower, especially if you stay in motion design and you're
Yeah.
pitching things to clients and you're writing emails to get work and
And even
stuff.
when you're working, like
Yeah.
having the ability to communicate when you're working, especially when you're doing art direction, not necessarily the animation, it
Yeah.
changes how you think, how you work. It becomes less about the technicalities and it's more about what am I trying to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just changes everything.
You
You're
need to
asking a
have,
question.
yeah. I was just thinking you really need to have Chris come on here. You and him would have so much fun talking about stuff because
I would love Chris. I just don't.
yeah,
I feel like is like just like you. When you know what I said about you, when someone is like
he is
far
bald.
beyond your reach,
He is bald like me. So
I think Chris is more beyond my reach than you. But then I have a friend who had Chris earlier this year. So I'm just going to try my luck one day when I'm ready.
when
When I'm
you're feeling
when,
good.
when I'm feeling confident. Like when I tweeted, I was very, very like, I was just thinking it was a thought. I should have Joey on this live stream. And I just tweeted, I would really love to have Joey. And 2 days later, you responded, and it was amazing. So like, I feel like when I get into that mood again, I would call him. He's on my list of people I would like to have.
Yeah, well, he's awesome, man. I think you two would get along too. And by the way, thank you again for inviting me on. This has been really fun. And I don't like a lot of times the conversations I get to have on live streams like this, it's like they're about things I know a lot about. And this
Mm.
one, it was about stuff I don't really know a lot about. And I've learned a lot. You're really good at explaining sort of like the structural problems, like access to software, all of that. And I'm serious. Like the reason I was excited to talk to you, Roland, was because you're trying to do something that I would love to see happen, and I have no idea how to do it. But you live in Nigeria. You're in a much better position to actually make a difference than me. And so I want to help you. So we're gonna talk again. This will not be the
Yeah,
last time, I promise you.
I hope
And
so
you've
too.
got me thinking. You've got a lot rolling in around in there.
Yeah, I really, really hope this won't be the last time we would talk because
Well, I'm coming to Nigeria next year, right? We're
yes,
planning this conference, right? So I'll be there.
yes, like we just need a perfect time in to have the conference, a perfect time of the year because of Corona. So we have to consider the new systems, the new immigration laws, everything. Though Nigerians really don't
details, details.
like so like Might be the end of the year, but we would figure it out. I have
Yeah,
no doubt.
we'll keep in touch, and regardless, like I definitely want to come visit Nigeria. It's like it's high up on my list. And in the meantime, I'm gonna check in on you when you start design boot camp, and I want to
Yes,
hear how it's going. And I'm gonna tell your teaching assistant to go really hard on you and push you.
I would love that because I want to get better. I feel like I'm too comfortable in design, and I kind of do everything I normally do. Like it's already a routine for me. Just do this effect.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
need a
this will
class
kick
that
your
would
butt. This
break
will,
me.
yeah. You get
Because
your
like
butt
I
kicked.
keep doing the same thing. I keep doing the same thing all over again, the same style, the same look. Just need something to break me, and I just want to keep an open mind and learn new things.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, listen, dude, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And thanks. I don't know how many people were watching, but thank you. And thanks
There
to
was a
did
lot
you
of
say your
people.
uncle was watching? Like your cousin? Who's
Yeah,
like your
what?
family was watching, right? Awesome.
Yeah, it was
I love
amazing.
it.
My family don't watch my live streams, but this time they are watching, and I'm like, oh,
See, if you were a doctor, this wouldn't have happened and they wouldn't have been able to watch this. So
right?
yeah.
It's true. Like they won't be honestly like.
Awesome.
Some people are dropping some questions. I would kind of let you go, then I'll answer a lot of them for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I gotta jump, but thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Roland. And yeah, man, we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you very much. Take care of
Awesome. No
yourself.
problem.
All right, this place has become silent. I just wanted to answer a few. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to answer a few questions that I'm seeing right now before I leave. The first question is from Bounty Sunny. Is there any way Nigerians can get a huge reduction for the winter boot camp? Yes, there is. There is a scholarship going on right now, and I will share the link on my Instagram so you can apply for it. And yeah, I think that's just. Oh, my brother is asking, what do motion designers hate the most? I personally hate expressions and I hate keyframes, to be honest. And I think this is where I would stop. Thank you, guys, everyone who watched, for coming. Please do have a lovely evening. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Bye.